Yeah. So on the first point, look, a lot of the operating models we build aren't crazy. They're going to be similar to what you see. We're not building some super complicated LBO that's above and beyond what other firms do or anything like that. We'll model the same as everybody else. We'll have three statement models. We'll look at EBITDA to like true free cash flow, look at leverage, look at fixed charge covenant ratios, and just see like what are we getting paid to take this risk. It's 5 times leveraged loan. Like, what's the right leverage for that, what's the right pricing for that, and we'll look at things like that. And there's like some funny rules of thumb historically that have been like that are not true, but they're like you don't want coupon below leverage. Like, I'm not saying that's always true, but if you're doing an L plus 500 loan at like 7 times leverage, like that might not be accurate unless you're funding like Apple. And so that's like high level. The modeling is like super easy. What I think you need to be more cognizant of is what you brought up, like your downside cases and what can go wrong. I mean, like, I think it's really easy to just model a downside case and be like, yeah, it's going to be a recession, and that means it's going to fall. Top line will fall by like 10 or 15%, and then we will and we'll have like 3 times operating leverage, but there'll still be value through the first lien, and so we're good. Like, that's like a very high level how someone might do a downside case. But I think what you really have to think through are examples. And again, like this you really start to learn this more after you like mess it up or after something goes wrong. But scenarios where it's like what's the next shoe to drop is like a question you might hear a lot. But there's scenarios where your entire business could disappear or be in trouble. An example of this is, let's say a recession does occur, or let's say there is something bad that happens and revenues fall by 20%. One thing that can happen is you can get downgraded by the rating agencies. And if you get downgraded by the rating agencies, it happens frequently, like people are like, okay, then the debt should be more expensive. But a real world effect of that is that there is a big press release that goes out on all the news sites that says like ABC Co is downgraded. And when customers see that, they might get scared and say, oh, well, if you're on selective default now, should I still keep my business with you? Next thing you know, all your customers are pulling their business out, and you have to be aware that you could go from a business that does $1 billion in revenue very quickly to 400 million if the customers are scared. So you need real retention and real contract structure on something that you thought was just like, okay, maybe it's just down 10, 20% in a downside. And like, this kind of stuff is more on the operational front than what you will get from just sitting behind a desk and like modeling it out. And so how do you protect against that? You need to have like, it's not as simple as like having a covenant. Like, you need to be involved with management, right? I mean, at KKR, we do have capstone when they're like going to be operationally involved, but there are scenarios where we're intimately involved with management. There are scenarios where, we've done like customer calls and like been involved with those to like voice our support for the deal and the company. And there've been a lot of scenarios where you need to, we'll call up the rating agencies, and we have to be actively playing offense to make sure that the worst downside case doesn't occur. You can structure the deal all you want. Like, you can, have your covenant, you can have a good amortization structure, you can have an ECF sweep, you can have a tight EBITDA definition, but like, just be realistic. Like, if all the customers or 80% of the customers leave because you got put on selective default, covenant trips, and you take over the business, then what? Like, you're gonna have like a big old 0.4 MOIC, and you're gonna have to mark it off that for your fund 8. That's not gonna work. And so the downside case isn't so much a modeling exercise so much as a, what are you actually going to do? And a problem there is that you frequently will not have the bandwidth to do it. And so you're gonna have to really pick your spots, and you need to pick businesses where you don't have that high standard deviation downside.